And if I can invite the panelists to come up at this time, I want to thank whoever it was that had the idea to lighten things up a little bit with that video. I'm assuming it had something to do with Haggerty and Green because they're usually the ones that lighten things up, and I'm usually the one that's all too serious, but I did enjoy that, and I'm sure many of you did. But we heard Supervisor and Commissioner Haggerty really lay it all out there. Now we're going to slow it down a little bit and have a little bit of a discussion about what some of the hopes and concerns and possibilities are around this subject at this time. So let me introduce the panel to all of you. And some of these are familiar faces, of course. To my immediate left, your right, it would be Supervisor Jim Spering. He served as mayor of Suisun City from 1986 through 2006 and was elected to the Solano County Board of Supervisors in June of '06. He currently serves on the MTC, and I will tell you he's a recognized leader there, having had the opportunity to serve with him. He's very active in land use planning and is currently a member of the Local Agency Formation Commission and the Solano Water Authority. Next to him is Supervisor Ken Yeager. He serves as president of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors. He was elected to that board in June of 2006 after serving on the San Jose City Council for a number of years. In December 2008, Ken was appointed by Governor Schwarzenegger to the California Air Resources Board, a statewide agency responsible for reducing air pollution and combating global warming. He also sits on the local Bay Area Air Quality Management District. Next to him, Kalra, council member from the city of San Jose. He was elected to the city council in November 2008, and he's the first Indian American to be elected to the city council in that city. He previously served on the San Jose Planning Commission, including a term as chairperson. Prior to joining the city council, Ash worked as an attorney for the Santa Clara County Public Defender's Office, representing indigent clients in drug court. He also sits on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District Board. And last, but of course not least, Vice Mayor Quan, who has served on the Oakland City Council since 2003. She is currently president of the Asian Pacific American Municipal Officials of the National League of Cities. She is vice chair of the Local Government Commission, a national nonprofit leader in networking local elected officials, planning and industry experts, and other community leaders to create healthy, walkable, and resource-efficient communities. Now, I'm going to present a question to each of our panelists, but before I do that, please give them a big round of applause for their commitment to be here today. A little bit of housekeeping here. Each speaker will have 6 minutes to respond, or less, of course. They know that. I understand there's a timer out here somewhere. Hopefully, there she is out there. You're welcome to come up here a little closer if you like. I know as an elected official, sometimes it's hard to see the timer out there. But back to housekeeping in general, we started a little bit late. We intend to end as close to on time as possible per the program that you have in your packets. But we do want to make sure we allow a little bit of time for question and answer from the audience at the end of this panel discussion. So 4 6-minute responses to my questions, and then you get a chance to pose some questions, and then we'll have a short break. And in case I forget to say it later, please make sure you come back from the break. Question number 1 for Supervisor Jim Spering. Jim, this relates to local land use and redevelopment, a topic, as I said earlier, that you are quite well versed in from your years leading redevelopment efforts in Suisun and Solano County. You also have the regional perspective as the longest serving MTC commissioner, where you helped create the Transportation for Livable Communities. Some people know that as TLC. MTC has worked very closely with ABAG on launching the PDA areas, priority development areas, which are a key component to the Focus Initiative. What are we learning from these regional programs, and how can we apply those lessons to implementation of SB 375? Wherever you're comfortable, you're welcome to come to the podium if you like.
Is this mic on?
It is on.
Okay, well, thank you. My comments are going to be geared towards that 31% of elected officials that are in the room, and at 37% of staff, you can take a break. I'm going to give you SB 375 101 course. I'm going to give you Scott Haggerty's comments. I'm going to give it to you from a perspective of someone that's not on speed, and so I'm going to slow it down. The SB 375, I think as most of you have probably come to the conclusion, is a very complex bill that has several layers of impact on local government. And if you haven't read the bill yet, I encourage you to get a summary of the bill and read that summary first, so then when you read the bill, you can really start to put the pieces together. But if you just try and read the bill without the summary, it's a very difficult bill to follow and understand. The several layers is the California Air Resources Board, after consulting with local government, will set regional greenhouse gas reduction. So that's the first layer. And then next is the JPC, which is a Joint Policy Committee, which is currently working on the Sustainable Community Strategy, the SCS, and that's made up of MTC, ABAG, the Air District, and BCDC. And they're to come forth with the SCS by 2013. Then the Regional Transportation Planning Agency, in this case in San Francisco Bay Area, is MTC, which would then incorporate these targets into the Regional Transportation Plan, the RTP, and MTC is required by the bill to do a public participation plan. Next, the transportation plan would then contain a land use component that I refer to as our Bay Area Transportation Regional Blueprint that would create the Sustainable Community Strategy that'll drive the regional transportation investment, and that's really the key component here for you elected officials. Now, how does this affect you? SB 375 was designed to limit the CO2 emissions by controlling the land use patterns throughout the state, with an emphasis on increasing transit-based development through various incentives. And I believe Ken Yeager, the final panelist here, is going to talk about the control on land use, and this is something that most of us elected officials are very worried about. Now, if you're planning in your community walkable, mixed-use, transit-oriented growth that reduces VMT and greenhouse gas emissions, you're supposed to move to the front of the line for funding, very similar to what we're doing with the PDAs. For a bonus, if your project is located adjacent to a transit line, it'll have an easier environmental review process. That's a fat chance, and I'd like to see that happen. Now, this is where I say SB 375, and as Mark Green talks about the Dodgers, the word steroids came to mind. And this is where SB 375 is redevelopment on steroids. If your project incorporates all the requirements of SB 375, it opens your project to additional funding opportunities in a region. Most redevelopment projects today incorporate the same principles as SB 375. The problem will be both the location and the measurement of the VMT. And so that's going to have to be an integral part of your plan. One of the struggles we're having as we develop the SCS is that it works both for the urbanized and the more rural counties. As you know, Solano, Napa, Sonoma, and Marin are rural, and it's going to be very difficult for us to compete with the more urbanized areas that have good transportation corridors. And so we have to come up with a plan that we can encourage good planning in those rural communities too. Now, I relate SB 375 to MTC's TLC program, the Transportation for Little Communities. When MTC introduced the TLC program, we were moving around the region presenting some of these smart growth strategies. And many of the planners, as we presented these, they were saying, gosh, why aren't we doing this in our planning process now? It just makes good sense. And I think SB 375 has a lot of those elements in it, and I think we can do a good job blending those. Now, as we analyze SB 375, we see that a lot of do I have just a couple minutes left? We see a lot of what just makes good sense. The core principle of SB 375 make communities better to live, walkable, bicycle-friendly, easy access to transit with alternative modes, jobs and housing balance, and attractive mixed uses. Now, if you apply these principles, you'll have more funding opportunities in a better community. And I think Jake McKenzie was talking about it. You know, a lot of these things just make our communities much better. And so it's just common sense to incorporate them. Now, where you have to be vigilant is what gets incorporated into the Regional Transportation Plan, the RTP. You know, people say that this bill is fairly benign and it doesn't have any enforcement, but where this enforcement's going to take place is what gets put into that RTP. And so for you elected officials, I want to encourage you that you have to monitor that very closely. The RTP will direct the transportation investment for the next 20 years, and we need to be sure that the SCS that we adopt is a plan that works for all of our cities and counties. Today really is, for your local elected officials, the battle cry. Get involved, contact ABAG to find out how you can influence the process and work towards sustainable community strategies that works for your community. The planning we're doing now is the last defense, and I want you to get involved in this process. It's very important that your input helps develop this SCS. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Jim. And that had to have prompted a few questions, so please jot them down, save them for the end, and then you can bring those forward and we can challenge Jim a little bit on a little bit of what he said there. Moving to Jean Quan, I see her setting the timer on her phone there for 6 minutes. Jean, congratulations on the recent designation of Oakland six new planned PDA areas in Oakland. We understand that there's a major effort behind the application process, especially those of us serving at ABAG currently. We also know that Oakland has moved toward a more unique transit village concept, and hopefully you'll be able to talk about that a little bit. In this context, how do you think the existing SCS strategy framework that we're talking about can support a robust development of your PDAs in Oakland? And how do you think the SCS can leverage the cultural diversity, transit accessibility, and community interest in Oakland for a sustainable development path for your PDAs? Please.
Of course, this is in 6 minutes. I'm cheating. I'm going to send you to 2 websites. First of all, I want to thank people for coming, and I want to thank Henry for his genius. I'm actually going to leave you early. I'm going to the League of Cities vote on whether or not we're going to continue to support AB 375. And trust me, I'm running for mayor. Mike Wu understands that, and I'm going to miss 2 campaign events, but this may be one of the most important votes I'll ever take as a member of the League of Cities. When we talk to young people, the mayor probably gave you some of the stats about how proud we are in Oakland to be consistently one of the top 10 green cities. And I have to tell you, walking neighborhoods and doing 111 house parties, people under 40, particularly in this city, get that green cities, transportation, is a really important part of their future. And I noticed in the house parties when you got boomers, schools, crime is the top thing, but when you've got people under 40, it's sort of like, do you remember those of us who are boomers when we used to have to get under the desk? We were afraid that we might not grow up, that the world might be blown up. Well, a lot of young people are wondering whether or not we're going to leave a place that's healthy for their children to grow up. And so it's in that context, as an Oakland City Council member and a city that's been planning for a long time, that we're looking at how to take this transit-oriented development and really apply it to a whole city. So we've got 6 transit village plans, and you were saved by the McAfee virus from a PowerPoint that would have showed you 6 pictures of 6 different villages. So I'm going to just verbally walk you through a couple of them. Probably to me, the original one was Rockridge, and Oakland now has more Zagat-rated restaurants than Berkeley. Rockridge was the beginning of that. And it's a very walkable community. And if you go there on a Saturday afternoon, you're going to see moms on bikes, nobody in cars, everybody walking. Amazing. And that's sort of, for the suburban colleagues and other colleagues, you can do Rockridge. Secondly, a lot of you have seen Fruitvale. Fruitvale took a very poor community, a community of immigrants. It's put a combination of housing, and if you ride your bike to Fruitvale, the East Bay Biking Coalition will have a valet parking for you. It's a very interesting mix, and it is part of our economic development strategy. We are in the midst of doing Lake Merritt. It's going to be a combination of housing, and next to the first nationally proclaimed estuary, part of our green and environmental, that's Lake Merritt and the Oakland Alameda Estuary. And then you've got the Coliseum, which took a very poor, very dangerous project area and now is a Hope 6, and I spent my night there last night doing a house party. It's combined workforce housing with what was there before in the projects, and we're just waiting to see whether or not we keep both the Raiders and the A's in terms of what the rest of the development looks like. So different kinds of developments each. West Oakland, you begin to see some of the best urban climate gardens, and you can go buy organic vegetables planted by the kids within a half a block of the West Oakland, and you can see some of the historic places like Slim Jenkins, for those of you who know jazz, being restored, and our first food co-ops, but probably still the hardest hit community, but it's the key to turning some low-income communities. So why do I mention all these? Because Transit-oriented village doesn't have to look the same. And I think in Oakland, we add to it now the complexity of the corridors between it. Having more housing above retail on streets like Telegraph, on International. So it's really become a spark plug for really developing economic development in the neighborhoods throughout the city. And that goes to the three themes of, that we haven't mentioned today. These help drive economic development. They help drive our environmental future and our environmental goals. And they help drive really tough questions about equity. So I won't be dishonest here. When you're going in a historic community like Oakland, you're going through a lot of historic buildings. This is not easy. When you're talking about whether or not the housing is going to be for people who live in Oakland, or what you see now is a new wave of boomers moving back to the cities, as well as we're cheaper than San Francisco and we're closer to San Francisco. Jerry Brown used to say we're closer to downtown San Francisco than most of San Francisco. So what balance you have between new Oakland residents and historic Oakland residents, these are all tough questions, but they're great questions. They're great problems. They help develop a vibrant culture. So I cheated. I want to give you two websites. One is, if you want to look at our transit-oriented villages, go to www.oaklandnet.com, go to our economic development page, but more importantly, go to our climate action page. Our climate action page describes, I have a minute, describes a whole series of meetings that we've been having with people in the community, people like the Ella Baker the Ella Baker Center for Justice, Van Jones came out of that, with schools, with poor communities throughout the city, and we came up with a climate action plan that's pretty aggressive. Will we make it? Who knows, but we're going to try. And I think that's the most important thing, that a lot of young people, so we made it not so boring, not just planners and a couple of neighborhood activists. We've made it. We've taken this plan to the schools. It was a lot of fun. I was at a rally at Laney College about 10 blocks from here, and there were 200 people there, and most of them were under 30, and they were cheering us on to get the city council to approve that plan. So have some fun with it. Do it in a different way, and if you're trying to explain this to your constituents, the Green Belt Alliance helped me write an opinion piece that's in the Chronicle today. I have a few extra copies. We tried to make it sort of very practical, and keep your fingers crossed and call your representatives at the League of Cities before 3:30. Thank you.
Wow, Gene, I don't think you cheated at all. That was outstanding, a lot of information. You ended right on time. Thank you very much for that. I know Gene talked a little bit about the duck and cover mentality, and I don't know how many of you have the opportunity to go out and speak to kids in classrooms on this issue. I know most of us do that as public officials or elected officials, but that mentality is out there. Speaking to a gymnasium full of 7th graders a couple of days ago, I asked them the wide open question of who knows what's going to happen as a result of global warming. And this is a well-behaved group, and they started shouting out, "We're all going to die." Of course, I assured them they're not all going to die, but it's very clear that we've used up our chances, and we're starting to borrow some of their chances at this point, and I think we all know that. Kalra, and yes, it is pronounced Osh. I'm trying to straighten that out for you, you know, in a bulk level here, Osh. You serve on BAAQMD as well as on ABAG, and my question to you is, how does SB 375 fit in with the Air District goals of achieving clean air and improving public health?
Well, thanks, Dave, for clearing up the pronunciation. I appreciate that. And also to my, I joined the BAAQMD board in January, and so I'd like all my fellow board members as well as BAAQMD staff like to let them know that I did get the question right on particulate matter, along with 75% of the people in this audience. When it comes to environmental stewardship in general, in looking what's been done over the last few decades, certainly government regulations and mandates have been necessary to spawn not just behavior change, but the innovation necessary to create dramatic changes in our quality of life. And this morning, when I was getting ready, I heard on KGO, the regional director of the EPA was asked, what is the one area where he feels has been greatest improvement in the Bay Area? And he clearly said it's in air quality. And so we know that that's had a dramatic impact and has probably saved many lives. In fact, over the last 30 years, we've seen a population increase of 70%, and yet we've seen a 79% decrease in carbon monoxide emissions. So clearly, the goals of BAAQMD, the goals of improving our air quality, have a very close connection to how we think about future planning of our local jurisdictions as well as the state. Specifically, the greatest polluter is the largest single source of pollution, of air pollution, is transportation, and in addition, greenhouse gas emissions. So we already have in California probably the cleanest private vehicle fleet in the country, perhaps the world, but we know that there are certainly improvements that can be made. Much of the low-hanging fruit in terms of reducing emissions from both mobile and stationary sources through either the vehicle buyback program, heavy-duty motor retrofits and replacements, school bus retrofits, and so on have already been done. So we know that technology has helped, innovation has helped, but really it does come down to changing behavior and continuing to do that, not just in terms of our individual behavior, but also of how we behave as governments, how we behave as municipalities, as developers, and so on. Now, we do know that the land use changes that SB 375 will bring about will improve air quality by reducing vehicle cause pollution in the region, and also just in terms of how we plan in the future, and it's going to have a dramatic impact. And along those lines, I really wanted to spend the bulk of my time talking about the CEQA guidelines update that BAAQMD's currently in the process of going through, and it's been an exhaustive process. And part of the reason why we're going through it is because we know that not just 40% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the Bay Area are transportation, 34% are industrial. So moving forward, we do have to have some dramatic impacts on how we're going to develop. And some of the air, and I just quickly go over 4 air district land use goals as a premise. They're to promote strategies that support livable communities, reinforce MTC, ABAG, and local programs as well, use caution in planning residential, schools, sensitive uses near areas with high emissions, and also to deal with potential conflicts that may often be resolved through site-specific analysis and mitigation. Just on Monday, in fact, in San Jose, there was a workshop to talk about these guidelines. And before I go over some of what it covers, I just want to let you know that we do have the PowerPoint available in the exhibit area, as well as a sheet of paper on the proposed air quality CEQA thresholds of significance. I think it's really important if you can go grab a copy of it, or you can get it online also on the BAAQMD website to see what exactly we have in mind. So it's been a 14-month process, hoping to come to a close in June in terms of establishing these new guidelines on future development. And we're hoping to have the final vote actually in San Jose in a special meeting of the board. And to talk about the greenhouse gas emission limits, really the important way I think for all of us, and I'm really happy to see that most people here are city staffers, or governmental staffers at least, because you're the ones that are going to do all the work, and I've seen that firsthand in these BAAQMD guidelines, where the city of San Jose has probably worked more closely with the BAAQMD staff than any other governmental jurisdiction or governmental agency. We have 2 case studies that we've looked at specifically. One's our Japantown Corporation Yard, the other one's Ohlone Mixed Use Project. And by doing that, what we've been able to do is really model these guidelines through actual projects that we have planned in the future. And so there was certainly concerns over the past 14 months this has been proposed to look, there have been concerns on what impact it's going to have on what we're already doing as local communities. And in January, as a board, we asked for a delay before implementation, just specifically to have this kind of modeling done. So I certainly encourage all jurisdictions really to get a hold of what the guidelines are. And the reason I'm not going through all of it, they're complex and detailed, and I think it's more valuable for me to direct you to go ahead and talk to BAAQMD staff and find out what the guidelines are, and to really find ways to model your own plans in your own cities through what the guidelines are before they're adopted in June. Secondly, there's a CARE program which focuses on communities of risk, and it looks at both high emissions, concentration of toxic particulate matters in certain areas, coupled with vulnerable populations. And so we've identified 6 areas throughout the Bay Area, and again, that goes to social justice and social equality issues when we talk about environmental stewardship as well, and how we continue to grow. And so, these issues are certainly complex. I think the BAAQMD staff and the BAAQMD board have paid very close attention. We're closing in on putting forth these guidelines, and so I would encourage all of you to really take a look at them and find out how you can really incorporate them into what you're already doing, and how you can align what you're already doing in terms of SB 375 into your future development goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. More good questions, potential good questions there, and I hope everyone's thinking about those. Ken Yeager, you serve on a variety of boards. I touched upon that earlier: ABAG, BAAQMD, MTC, perhaps most importantly, the California Air Resources Board, the JPC, of course. I'm going to give you a wide open opportunity for a parting shot here. Given your role in all these boards, what, in your opinion, is the most pressing issue concerning SB 375 at this time?
Thank you, Dave. It's great to be here, and as Supervisor Spering said, that he was going to be addressing his comments to the 31% of you who are elected officials, and I will be doing the same. I think the most pressing issue concerning SB 375 for local decision makers is the potential impact that it will have on local control. I say potential because there is still a lot we don't know about it, but we all need to pay attention to be assured that our input is being heard. I feel it is responsibility of our representatives on our regional bodies and the staff of the regional bodies and our city and county planners to keep elected officials informed about what is occurring. If this is the first time that you've been hearing about these issues, then I think you need to begin engaging your city and county staff more, but also talking to the members who represent your counties on these boards to make sure that they're being proactive in reaching out to you. I am a very strong advocate of SB 375 and of AB 32. And the reason for that is because city councils in the past have not always made smart planning decisions. A lot of the time this is due because of neighborhood organizations fighting against higher densities. Meanwhile, developers push to develop swaths of land outside of the urban core. And no one has been in charge of making sure that cities are doing what they can to reduce sprawl. Nor have cities taken regional government seriously, given the tradition of local control. And all of this has led to the passage of SB 375. But at the same time, like many of the elected officials in the room, my roots are in neighborhood activism and making sure staff members aren't making decisions outside of the public arena. Call me old-fashioned about democracy, but I think it's the elected officials who should be making the decisions. I had specifically asked ABAG to have a panel for the spring assembly to focus on the region's implementation of SB 375 so everyone could understand what is happening, and I'm very pleased that they agreed, because I think this is a very big step for all of us. It is my personal experience that staff from regional bodies tend to understate the effects of 375, while many of its opponents overstate it. While the truth is somewhere in between, it still means that decision-making about land use is about to change. To be specific about 375, and you've heard some of this before, the bill requires the ARB to set greenhouse gas emission reduction targets for passenger vehicles and light rail trucks for 2020 and 2035. This is because 30% of greenhouse gas emissions in California comes from cars and light trucks. We'll never achieve the ambitious emission reduction targets of AB 32 unless we significantly reduce the number of automobile trips we make, and that requires changing how we do land use planning. SB 375 requires that emission reduction targets be assigned to each of the 18 metropolitan planning organizations in California at ARB's September meeting. As you know, our MPO is MTC. MPOs will then prepare sustainable community strategies, or SCSs, that define that region's strategy for meeting the reduction target. This strategy will include consideration of transportation and land use planning. After assigning targets, ARB's role is to assure the accuracy of each MPO's methodology and to determine whether the SCSs, if implemented, is capable of achieving the target. ARB will look to see whether the SCS contains the most ambitious, achievable level of effort to meet the target. SB 375 also requires MPOs to integrate the region's greenhouse gas emission reduction targets for passenger vehicles and light trucks into their next Regional Transportation Plan, or the RTP, development process. The Bay Area's RTP is set to be adopted in March 2013, giving us less than 3 years to work through how transportation planning and funding will support sustainable growth. Further, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, or the RHNA, process that assigns housing units to each city and county will need to be accommodated within the SCS. The distribution of state and federal dollars for transportation, which are detailed in the RTP, will be allocated according to the SCS and will follow the RHNA. Many Bay Area cities and counties routinely fall short in meeting their RHNA numbers. This has long been concerning until recently because the penalty was almost non-existent. However, in light of the recent court decisions against Pleasanton, and I hope you're all aware of that has halted non-residential building permits from being issued until Pleasanton plans for construction of housing units, cities need to get serious about planning for growth. The supremacy of the SCS in local land use planning is a new notion that directly challenges the long-held conviction that land use planning is the sole domain of local jurisdictions. Even though cities will approve individual projects, their hands may be tied with regional policies that require EIRs and extensive mitigations, or else risk losing state and federal transportation dollars. This is a very exciting time for local and regional land use planning. Done right, sustainable community strategies will enhance our quality of life, support our investment in mass transit, and reduce greenhouse gases. And I truly believe we should go full steam ahead. But I also know that if government pushes too hard in one direction without the consent of the governed, there can be pushback, which only makes our goals harder to achieve. That's why I have been so vocal and will continue to be vocal in trying to get everyone's attention. The more elected officials that are involved in the process, the better the results will be.
Well, thank you, Ken. And again, thanks to all the panelists. We'll get a chance to thank you with a round of applause right at the end here. We're actually somehow caught up a little bit on time. We're not completely caught up, but we do want to get into the question and answer period here, at least to some level. 2 questions. There's a microphone out here somewhere, right? I just want to make sure I know who has microphones. Okay, got it. And I'm going to let the folks with the microphones decide who's going to ask the first questions. What I ask of you is, obviously there's been a lot of provoking thought up here in comments. It would be easy enough to just comment back without an interrogatory. But please frame whatever you're going to say as a question so we can get a panelist or 2 to react. And we're going to try to move on here. If we can get some quantity in by keeping this at 1-minute responses, all of you have run for office, so you all know what that's like, then we can move things along a little bit. And I would like to ask the timer if you would just work, ABAG staff, to put up a 2-minute just before you want me to end the question and answer period, because I know we need a little break, and I know lunch is right around the corner, so we'll keep on task here. Please, and please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Carl Anthony, and I'm with an organization in Oakland called, it's a national organization called Breakthrough Communities. And my question concerns the relationship between the quest for social equity and SB 375. And I want to begin by appreciating the comments that Quan made, and also Kalra made about the air quality issues. My question concerns social justice because, as you know, climate change is a social justice issue all over the planet. And recently, we've noticed in the Bay Area the rise of greenhouse gas emissions has also corresponded to a great deal of economic polarization. That is, concentration of wealth and concentration of poverty. And a study by the United Way pointed out that there are 48 neighborhoods in the Bay Area with concentrated poverty. And I'm wondering what the view is of this planning process of addressing the issues of social equity as an integral part of the 3 E's. Social equity is very often dismissed in this process.
Okay, social equity, environmental equity, poverty. Is SCS capable of handling those issues? Gene, I know that's important to you based on your comments. Anybody else on the panel want to take a stab at it?
Let me
Raj?
start. I think it's, Carl, I appreciate it, and you know Oakland's such a complex city. We have so many different aspects of this, and that's why I would refer people back to the Climate Action Plan that had a lot of community involvement from a lot of our social justice groups. There are 3 things that I'm looking at right now. Clearly, the Port of Oakland, and we each have some industrial base that creates, in addition to mass transit, the whole issue of how the Port of Oakland, because it's really a regional driver, how we're going to work with the trucking industry and make the port more efficient, at the same time to make sure that we don't drive all the small truckers out of business, and give West Oakland some relief. People who have looked at the Alameda County statistics know that the asthma rates in West Oakland are some of the highest in the country, and so that's a major thing. I think the second thing in terms of social justice, that's even because of the discussion that Obama is now having, even as we go towards green industry and trying to make a shift in the economy, that we make sure that all communities participate, and that particularly those neighborhoods that have the highest unemployment have some advantage in dealing with that. So in the Oakland plan, we talk about the port, we talk about mass public transportation, and that's a statewide and a national issue. We've not invested enough in good public education, public transportation. We have some of the best in the Bay, in the country, but it's still not good enough. And in the budget cuts, the poor neighborhoods are shortcut again. And poor people and immigrants are the most dependent on public transportation. And then lastly, just the whole issue of if you take the industry, you take the public transportation, then you have to take the issue again of the rest of the greenhouse effect comes from our own homes. And so we're using a lot of the federal dollars to try to help, and particularly in the poorest communities in Oakland, to help do the climate retrofits. And frankly, in Oakland, I'm trying to combine them with earthquake retrofits, because we're in the 142nd year of every 140-year Hayward fault earthquake.
Ash, quick follow-up?
Yeah, just quickly, I mentioned very briefly the CARE program that is focusing on 6 priority communities in the Bay Area. It's no coincidence that many of the poorest communities in the Bay Area are in those 6 priority areas. So part of the goal is that as we seek to reduce impact from land use, transportation decisions, as we promote infill, that we protect the residents, both in terms of getting resources to mitigate the impacts, as well as allow for greater public participation in the process. So as far as the BAAQMD process, they really have looked at these areas, and I'd encourage you to pick up some of the materials from the presentation and contact BAAQMD staff or one of the directors for more information.
Jim Spering?
This is a very interesting question that you're asking. You know, when we talk about these disadvantaged neighborhoods, we always seem to leave out the economic poverty. You know, we very likely, if we're not careful on these guidelines that we adopt, you could have poverty in clean air instead of prosperity in clean air. And so we have to be very careful that we don't redline these neighborhoods, we don't discourage business investment in these neighborhoods, we don't discourage job housing balance in these neighborhoods. And there's a very fine line. And so if we're not very diligent about how we develop those guidelines, it could be a disadvantage. They certainly could have clean air, but they're going to have that poverty, and there's going to be another generation of economic poverty.
Okay, thank you. Next question. I'm having a hard time seeing with the bright lights. Right over here.
Hi, my name is Al Weinrub. I'm with the local Clean Energy Alliance in the Bay, and actually a proud member of the Oakland Climate Action Coalition that's been very active in Oakland around this. So SB 375 and developmental and transportation use planning is really, really important, and it's important that it be done at a regional level. But the question of sustainability actually goes quite a bit beyond the question of just land use and transportation. It has to do with where water is produced and how it's consumed, where food is produced and how it's consumed, where energy is produced and how it's consumed. So I guess my question is how can we envision the real question of sustainability and the question of equity and survivable neighborhoods if we don't also incorporate into this process a broader notion of sustainability, other sectors, other interest groups within our community that are focused on these other aspects of reducing, and necessary aspects of reducing greenhouse gas, especially in light of a situation that land use planning and whatnot is like a 25-year horizon, whereas some of these other ways of reorganizing more sustainable communities are much more possible, not based on the fixed structures that already exist.
So the question,
So that question is,
can SES handle the broader view of
yes,
the
or
broader
how,
definition of
well,
sustainability?
how can we make the SES incorporate that broader view?
Well, as you heard, I think there's some concern that we're just trying to get the word out at this point, but who wants to speak to the issue of the broader view and how much of it might be captured by the SCS at this point?
I'll just refer to one issue. You raised the issue of water. In my Chronicle opinion piece today, one of the factoids I quote is that if we do most of our development within existing cities, we basically will save the water equivalent of the entire Hetch Hetchy and Lake Shasta water systems. So by addressing smart growth, and I would also refer you to Jake, who used to be the chair of the local government commission, and he's famous for his Hawaiian shirts everywhere. Jake played a major role in writing the Awani water principles, which are also linked to, again, smart growth development within current city corridors and leaving green space.
Ken Yeager.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, there's, your question just touched on so many different areas of environmental change that there's a lot of different organizations. Certainly ARB is dealing with many of them, many of the various issues that you mentioned. It's hard to see that any one regional body or even ARB is going to be focusing on all of those issues. And so I think that's why we need to sort of focus on all of the different regional bodies that are taking a part of this, and whether it's, you know, whether it's BAAQMD or MTC, ABAG with housing, or cities and plannings with their climate action plans. You won't see all of it under sort of one umbrella, but it just means everyone's got to pay a little bit more attention to all of the different activities that are happening. But I would say for the larger issues that you're mentioning, it's the focus is certainly on the California Air Resources Board as they begin to implement in a very serious way very soon AB 32.
Okay, I got a special request because we've just got a couple minutes left in order to try to keep things on track here. And I know we could keep going with this dialogue, but that's the point, to keep it going in our own communities, not just here. We need to take action to the streets. What I need, and this is my prerogative at this point, is an elected official who has a question, a concern with a question mark on it, on this one theme, this thread that we kept hearing from all the panelists regarding one called it, I think it was Jim Spering, control of land use patterns. Ken Yeager talked about concern for the specific targets in the bill that have to do with land use. I think Osh talked about the guidelines process for CEQA coming out of BAAQMD. An elected official that wants to pose the ultimate question for this panel on those issues. Somebody, I see hands raised out there, so I'll leave it to the other moderators to pick somebody.
Mr. Moderator, you have two elected officials standing in front of you. I appreciate the shout out, Quan. Quan, this is a question to the whole group here, Mr. Moderator, as opposed to the panel. If Quan is going up to the League of California Cities board meeting this afternoon, the question she has been asked to vote on is whether the League should encourage the governor to delay implementation of AB 32 and to support legislation to suspend 375. Tom Butt and I have fought the good fight at the policy committee level, and our question to you is?
Our
our question is, if it's not out of order, we would like to see if we can get an informal straw vote of this group about whether AB 375 and AB 32 should be, or SB 32 and AB 375 should be suspended, so that we can send Quan up to the League of Cities with at least an informal feeling of this particular assembly of ABAG.
And I didn't plan this, so elected officials.
But Tom and I planned it.
Well, straw polls are never out of order, but I don't know how to run the little voting machines here. So, let me first ask, just for a general show of hands, in terms of general support for SB 375 and AB 32. If you're generally supportive, meaning you wouldn't want to see it suspended, raise your hand. Okay, great. Now, let me turn that into...
Could I just, you know how the league is. Could I have just the elected
you are.
officials? I'm sorry, staff, but this is the way the league is. Can I have the elected officials? Are there any elected officials who want us to override this? Anybody? 1, 2, 3, 4,
Something needs to be addressed here today.
5.
What I'd like to address is that I'm in enemy territory, I understand that. But as an elected official who has to go back and represent people who have lost jobs, who are more worried about the economy than AB 32 or SB 357, how do I go back and tell them that we're going to remain members of ABAG when I just spent 3 hours here today listening to a political campaign on why 375 is good and not a single presentation on any of the problems or any of the opposition's opinions and some of the false information that was issued today. So as an elected official, I need to know that I can come to ABAG and I can get both sides, and I'm not getting that today. That's not what I've heard here today, and I think those of us that do not want this implemented because we want to represent maybe what's best in our opinions for our local constituents, we either have to walk away from ABAG or we have to look at it and somewhat of a disingenuous manner where we're going to come here and we're going to participate in these things, then we're going to go home and we're going to report out that we heard a lot of things that are going to hurt our communities and we didn't hear both sides. So my challenge to ABAG and my question to the board would be, where's the other side?
Well, good comments. Let me just, again, take the moderator's prerogative to say this much. Obviously, it's not ABAG 32 and ABAG 375. These are state legislative requirements at this point, so the old saying, don't shoot the messenger, is certainly in play here. As to the message, I think that this panel was really charged, and I happen to know in the preparation for this panel as a moderator, with putting this out there as candidly as possible and in as provocative terms as possible to get these kinds of questions and comments and concerns out there. And as you heard Supervisor Yeager say in his closing comments, there are deep concerns, so your comments are appreciated. This is an ABAG assembly. It is an open forum here, and you got the mic. So I think despite the fact you may be in the minority, we are hearing all sides. Panel, why don't we allow everyone just a quick 1-minute response on closing on your concerns, that minority, majority views on this subject are heard, and then we'll close out. I think ABAG staff will thank us all for that, trying to keep on time here. Jim, why don't we just go right to left, from my right to left, and we'll start with you, Supervisor Spering.
Okay. I'm very confused about the comments from the gentleman. I think that, it's been stated very clearly that there is a concern, and in my comments, I'm saying we need to be vigilant. We need to be concerned about what gets incorporated in the RTP. And that's why we're here. And I'm encouraging people in my comments, I say, get involved. You will not be able to change this process or address the needs in your community if you walk away. And there's plenty of time to influence this process. And I know, as you read SB 375, it really is very frightful, but there's a lot to it that will enhance every single city and county in this region. And if we all work together, I think it's going to be a plan that works and functions to improve those communities. And so As I said earlier, this is the battle cry. Get involved, get engaged. There's plenty of public process, and the concerns you have, whoever that gentleman was, you need to bring them forward. I mean, you've raised some issues. I don't know what the details are. I'd love to hear them.
There's obviously many elected officials here, but we all have to ask ourselves, what do the elected officials who aren't here, what are they aware of? And you would certainly know who is on your city councils or your board of supervisors, and you could sort of think, okay, are they following these issues? Do they know what's happening? And my feeling is that if you don't know who your representatives are on these regional bodies, you need to find out. You need to contact them. If you don't know much about what these regional bodies do, you need to learn. I can't tell you, change is coming. Change is coming. And we got to do it right, or again, there's going to be a lot of people upset and a lot of backlash, and let's avoid all of that by doing it right the first time. And if I could just take another half a minute with Councilman Kalra when he was talking about the CEQA guidelines, I just make an editorial comment. Some of us on the BAAQMD board really had to push staff not to approve those way back in December because we didn't feel anybody knew what was even going on. And it took a lot of fighting to have it happen, but we got the community meetings in all of the 9 counties. They're happening now. You should have been informed, and if you didn't go or you're not interested, shame on you. Staff is making the effort to make it happen, to get you the information, but we as elected officials then have to take our responsibility in our busy lives to learn more about it as well.
Thank you, Ken. Ash?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And, Ken's absolutely right. There was a great concern from the board in BAAQMD that although, I could comfortably say, okay, the city of San Jose isn't working with staff, we know what's going on, but that wasn't good enough. We wanted to make sure that all the cities and towns in Santa Clara County knew what was happening with the guidelines and understood it. And to BAAQMD staff credit, they've gone to all 9 counties, been having these workshops, have informed planning staffs at the county, at agency levels. And so, it's really incumbent upon us to take the leadership role, to go back to our communities and let them know what the long-term impacts are if we don't implement change. There are, the one Bay Area is 101 cities, and whether we like it or not, each city has an impact on the other. And so it's not a question of what my individual city wants, it's a question of what we want for the future of the entire Bay Area, the future of our state, and as leaders in this country, as California being the state that oftentimes leads the country, really the future of this country. And so we have to have a long view. We can still provide jobs and provide smart growth within the framework of making sure that we have a more sustainable environment and frankly save lives of future generations.
Jean?
I'm going to start with my other hat on the chair of the Chabot Space and Science Center. Urge you to go to our website and play the little global warming game. It's not like we have a choice. We're looking at the long-term development economic issues in Oakland. I'm guessing that we're going to be flat for quite a few years. But can we afford to wait in terms of global warming and talking to our kids? I don't think so. And I think that's why the bus is moving. And so the question is, well, how do we then plan a future that doesn't pit jobs, economic development? You didn't say what city you were from, but that we don't plan economic development today versus the future for our children and climate warming. Climate warming is real for the Bay Area. In 10 years, we lose 100, I forgot the number of acres. A lot of that will make my Oakland Hill home a beachfront property. So the reality is that I've talked to developers yesterday. I had one of the biggest developers in Northern California in my office, and I said, I understand you guys are okay with 375. He said, yeah, like everything else. You tell us the rules, and we'll make it happen. But tell us the rules. If you look at the opinion piece today that I wrote, not only are a lot of the federal stimulus dollars aimed at cities who are on the forefront of this, and Oakland has gotten a lot of those grants because we are on the forefront of this, that if you want to get some of the stimulus monies, that as elected officials, it's the responsible thing to do. And just lastly, ABAG tries its best, and trust me, there was a lot of debate around this, and even in Oakland, I talked about the problems we're going to have in terms of historic districts, making sure that there's equity for low-income people. This is not easy, but I think the way we go forward is to go forward and to educate ourselves and make the best possible plan that we can. And for Oakland, it is clearly an economic benefit, and I can't say if that's going to be true for every city, but I think as elected officials we have to make it true for every city.
Thank you very much. So today, ABAG is the messenger, and we've heard a lot about ABAG and BAAQMD. Sitting up here in the front is Steve Hemiger from the MTC, and Ted Droutboom, who heads up the JPC, side by side with Henry Gardner from ABAG. BCDC is a partner in this, a full member of the JPC. As was said by these panelists, there is representation from throughout the Bay Area on those groups. Those professional staff folks, those leaders from a staff and management level are going to be reaching out to all of you to hear more of your concerns, and we need to hear them. Please respond to that outreach so that this implementation, when it occurs, happens correctly. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the leadership of those organizations I just mentioned. We appreciate it.